Good afternoon to you all. It's been a extremely invigorating 3 hours. The whole objective of doing these Chintan Shivers are most importantly the ability for us as individuals, as human beings, to work as a collective. This is the second Chintan Shivar we've had. The last one, I believe, was in late October. It has been our effort to ensure that we organize sessions such as this once every quarter or once every 6 months. And the reasons for organizing these Chintan Shivers are manifold. Yes, indeed, we delve into various aspects that are not necessarily second nature or, if you will, second skin to us. But the main objective of organizing these Chintan Shivers is to make sure that we come together as one family. In government, in our respective jobs, whether government or private sector, inevitably we tend to look at our own domain expertise. Inevitably, we tend to look at our silo, and that is human nature. We look for excellence within what is our responsibility. But across the world, and many studies have shown this, that successful organizations across the world are not built on purely domain expertise, purely expertise of your area of responsibility or your area of knowledge. Successful organizations are also not those organizations that necessarily hand out the fattest paycheck. There are two aspects of motivation. There is intrinsic motivation, and there is extrinsic motivation. Your paychecks, your domain expertise are parts of extrinsic motivation. But there's another very important aspect, and that is intrinsic motivation. And so, successful organizations are those that concentrate much more between the balance. संगम की अगर हम बात करें, तो उस संगम में, उस तराजू में, intrinsic और extrinsic के बीच में, successful organizations are those that concentrate much more on intrinsic motivation. And what do I mean by intrinsic motivation? Intrinsic motivation is about those organizations that are consistently and constantly, both very important words, consistent and constant, consistently and constantly learning organizations. Are you learning on your job? Is your job becoming too repetitive by nature? Are there areas within your job expertise that you would like to be exposed to? So increasing the breadth and the depth of your expertise. And therefore, I have tried throughout the portfolios that I've held in government, I've had the privilege of holding, to ensure that my team works as a quote unquote team. Which means what? A, you have to be responsible for your job, but you also have to be responsible for the unit as a collective. And so the word my, mama, Sanskrit mein shabd istemal kiya jata hai na, mama. That word my is not limited to your individual self. That word my is for the whole institution that you represent. And the institution that you represent in your capacity today, for those who are in government service, is not necessarily your division within the Ministry of Steel, is not necessarily the Ministry of Steel. It is the government of India. And that's the outlook that you have to have. For those who have come and spent their time with us from the private sector, it is not Tata Steel or JSW or any other organization. But what you represent is the contribution of India as a country. A whole of government approach, a whole of India approach. That's the notion that we have to inculcate in our quote unquote team, because that's only when it becomes a team. Otherwise, we use this word for just word lipping. But there has to be content behind that word. So that's the first point that I wanted to make. The second point is that there must be cross-fertilization. You must know what other divisions within your ministry are doing. Because many times what happens is that I am only limited and confined to my silo within my ministry. And if it is his silo, it is advantageous to the ministry, advantageous to the country, but disadvantageous to my silo, I must oppose it. Even though net gain to the country may be much more. But why? I have to protect my silo. Not my ministry or my country, but my silo. No. We have to shed that idea. And the only way that you will be able to shed that idea is if there is an exchange of ideas, there's understanding of how the ministry runs, there's understanding of how Government of India runs. And therefore, you must get that breadth. I must thank all the panelists who came here from the private sector, from PSUs, from government, because there are some nuggets that each one of us will pick up. The nuggets that I have picked up will be different from the nuggets that you have picked up. But listen attentively. Glean away from this. And shut your mobiles, please. This is the bane of our lives. I remember when I came back from the US, when I graduated from Harvard, and I came back as a banker, there was not a single one of these boxes in my country. Today there are more boxes than there are people. और आप ऑफिस में देखो, आप घर में देखो, as opposed to the box becoming our slave, we are becoming a slave to the box. We must also understand as human beings what is a tool for us and what we should not become a tool of. So the second point that I was making to you is that breadth of expertise through Chintan Shivers like this is something that we would like to develop within you. The nuggets that you take away. And keep those nuggets somewhere with you in your records. Because at some time, at some point of time, you will certainly use those. The third point I want to make is the soft skill aspect that we have added in all these Chintan Shivers. And I'd like to thank Nileji, which must give him a round of applause for the very motivating, heartfelt, the word I want to use is heartfelt, हृदय की गहराइयों से जो आत्म भाव, भावनात्मक और जो परिचय उन्होंने दिया, एक पारिवारिक परिचय. The biggest capability is to get through to people. And to get through to people, the introduction that we have to make must be personal. Because that hits home. And that's exactly what Nileji did. Leadership is not necessarily about domain expertise. It's an important ingredient, don't get me wrong. But leadership is about, and I'm using this term very clearly, it's about compassion. It is about empathy. It is about love. Not necessarily about authority. Authority is also important. But it is about caring. And these things must come naturally to us. If they don't, if we see it in people, we must learn and try and imbibe it within ourselves. 2 or 3 small examples that Nileji gave. The first, he talked about the incident that happened on the cricket field. It's a small issue, but it must occur to you naturally. We sent the boy, he had to get a couple of stitches done, so we sent him to the hospital. But immediately after the function, I went to the hospital. Came back from Rewa. Today, before I came to this function, I called him. His name is Vikas Tiwari. I said, Vikas, क्या हाल है? कैसे हो? ठीक तो हो? I'm in Delhi. I'm in the ministry. But somewhere within my heart was that factor that there's someone who's injured. How is he doing? These are small things, but they're important. Nileji talked about the home. घर के अंदर जाते हैं, आपको ढेर सारे कमरे मिलेंगे, और ये वास्तविकता है. हम लोग आजकल फ्लैट में रहते हैं. एंट्रेंस के दरवाजे से जाओ तो एक कमरा से दूसरे कमरे से तीसरे कमरे से चौथे कमरे में. एक बात जो इन्होंने नहीं की, क्या होता है अक्सर, मेरे साथ भी होता है, मंत्रालय से जाओ, बड़े व्यस्त हो, 9 बजे घर पे चले जाओ, रात को फिर तोहफा आ जाता है. क्या है तोहफा? फाइल का बस्ता आ गया. सीधा हम अपने कमरे में चले जाते हैं. 5 मिनट है, जल्दी खाना खाना है, खाना खाना है, फाइल करना है भैया, फाइल. बड़े व्यस्त आदमी हो भैया. फाइल किया, बज गए 12 बजे रात को, सोना. सुबह उठे 7 बजे, नहाए धोए, पूजा किया, सीधा मंत्रालय. घर का वातावरण कहां? पुराने जमाने में क्या होता था? पुराने जमाने में जब घर बनता था, ये छोटी बात है पर कहीं ना कहीं दिमाग में रजिस्टर होनी चाहिए. घर के अंदर सदैव प्रांगण होता था, हर कमरा उस प्रांगण के अंदर खुलता था। तो आपका कमरा है या मेरा कमरा है या इनका कमरा है, प्रांगण के अंदर खुलता था। बड़े व्यस्त हैं ये, बहुत व्यस्त हैं, मैं भी बहुत व्यस्त हूं, और हम निकलते थे तो उस प्रांगण में निकलते थे। तो जाने या अनजाने में मुलाकात हो जाती थी। क्यों, कैसे हो, ठीक है, अब ये सब ठीक, आप ठीक हो, चलो जल्दी नाश्ता करें, चलिए चलिए हम जब तक चलते हैं ऑफिस पर, वो मुलाकात हो जाती थी। वो हमारी सभ्यता, हमारी संस्कृति का एक अभिन्न भाग होता था। टुडे दैट इज नॉट देयर, बट वी मस्ट ट्राई एंड इनकल्केट दैट इन आवर होम्स. It's an area where honestly I'll tell you I am also find myself wanting. पर मेरे पिताजी करते थे। अब इन्होंने पिताजी की बात की ना, निलय ने, मेरे पिताजी तो बहुत व्यस्त आदमी थे, बहुत बड़े आदमी थे, हम बच्चे होते थे। अनरिटन रूल घर के अंदर होता था, जहां भी हो समय तय, 9 बजे रात को डाइनिंग टेबल पे बैठने का है। तुम पढ़ाई कर रहे हो या आप मंत्री हो या जो भी हो, डाइनिंग टेबल पे बैठना है। आधा घंटा डाइनिंग टेबल में पूरा परिवार एक साथ, उसके बाद जाइए आप करिए जो भी करना है, मैं भी व्यस्त हूं, आप भी व्यस्त हो। बट दैट कमिंग टुगेदर यूज्ड टू हैपन फॉर हाफ एन आवर, 40 मिनट्स। नो फोन्स, उस जमाने में तो मोबाइल था ही नहीं, कॉर्डलेस होते थे घर के अंदर। नो फोन्स, खाली परिवार की बात। वी ऑल मस्ट ट्राई एंड डू दैट। आई ऑल्सो फाइंड माई सेल्फ वॉन्टिंग ऑन दिस फ्रंट, बट ट्राई एंड डू दैट, बिकॉज what keeps you together is your family. If your family is strong, everything else will fit into the puzzle. Juggler hota hai na, there are many balls that we juggle in the air. You can afford for, and these are all glass balls, कांच के बने हुए हैं. I'm sorry, थोड़ी पर्सनल बात मैं कर रहा हूं, सारे बॉल कांच के बने हुए। यू कैन जगल ऑल दीज बॉल्स, इनमें से कोई सा भी बॉल टूट जाए, नो प्रॉब्लम, बट वो परिवार का बॉल कभी टूटना नहीं चाहिए। एंड दिस इज रबिश, जो लोग कहते हैं ना हम बहुत व्यस्त हैं, बहुत काम है। अरे भैया, फॉर व्हाट यू प्रायोरिटाइज इन लाइफ, you can always find time. This is a ruddy excuse that we make to ourselves. We justify to ourselves, and we are lying to ourselves only. So what you prioritize, certainly make time for. The last point I want to make, because I don't want to take too much of time. I've already taken too much of time. Concept of perception. हमको लगता है कि हम बहुत अच्छे हैं, हमको लगता है कि हम बड़े अच्छे लीडर हैं, हमको लगता है कि हम में बहुत कंपैशन है, बहुत एम्पैथी है, संवेदनशील व्यक्तित्व के धनी हैं हम। इट काउंट्स फॉर जैक। व्हाट इज नॉट इंपॉर्टेंट इज योर परसेप्शन ऑफ योर सेल्फ. What is most important is others' perception of you. So that's something that we must work on. With those very words, thank you very much.